Hello, everyone. My name is Beth Crockett, and I'm the Marketing and Communications Officer here at the Heritage Network. And I'm delighted actually to be here today to speak about the steps that you can take to promote your church. As Sarah mentioned, I've worked in marketing and events at independent historic houses and for the National Trust for over 5 years. And I joined the network in April of this year. I'm based in Somerset, and as my colleagues know, I am a very big promoter of the Southwest. And I actually saw that somebody was from Tavistock in the chat. So, yes, let's big up Devon, everybody. A lot of my work has focused on creating narratives to make audiences engage with the work that the organisation is doing. And I'm assuming that you are all here today because you are looking to find out more, or expand, or try out, or problem solve, or reach new people with promotion. As people who work with church buildings, a lot of why you might want to generate more awareness and support is probably around protecting the future of your church, generating income, and generating community support, because you're finding it harder to engage people with your work by simply talking about it. I'm going to show you how to achieve that promotion and awareness with narrative through marketing and comms tactics that you can apply to any situation. You want to produce a good narrative because it will engage the audience that you want to reach. It will help you attract and reach those audiences and help with project and add depth to your story. Without a narrative, it can be difficult for people to engage and care. Not because your story isn't interesting, it just doesn't interest them. It doesn't stand out. And this can be problematic if you're trying to reach new audiences to support with the work on your church, or if you're trying to, for example, convince any donors to donate. But how do you actually produce a narrative in a way that fits your skills, your knowledge, and the amount of time you have? Because we are all very busy people. And that's what I'll be talking to you about today. So we will be covering in this presentation common occurrences, the common situations that people often come across, what makes a good narrative, the 4 questions that you should be asking yourself before any promotion begins, how can you tell your story, how can you develop your story, common challenges, and then we'll just do a little bit of a recap and lessons learned in the presentation. So on screen are common occurrences that I have found most people often encounter when doing promotion for the first time. So let's set the scene. You've got a brilliant church, but you need more people to engage with it so that you can raise more money for example, the ongoing repairs that it needs. You carry out promotional activity, but the blog post that you upload to your website doesn't lead to many inquiries. The post on Facebook only gets 1 like, and the poster that you put up in the supermarket about needing volunteers doesn't spark any interest. You might think, oh, our promotion isn't working. We need to promote in more places to reach more people. But let's take a closer look at what was produced. So the blog post was a 20-paragraph long piece about the history of the church. The Facebook post was a few images of architecture with no explanation. And that poster had lots of text, but no images, and therefore didn't grab the attention of busy shoppers. It's very easy to think that to raise the most awareness, you need to tell everyone everything about what you are doing. And this can be especially true when you have minimal time, minimal resource, and very little budget. But by doing that, you'll likely not get the response that you want. The 20-paragraph long blog post about the history, that's a very long post about a very particular subject. The Facebook post said what the architecture was, but it didn't explain why it was important. And the poster didn't engage people because it didn't catch their attention. And if they did read it, it took them too long to find out what you wanted them to do. The art of successful promotion means appealing to the right people at the right time in the right place with the right narrative. And this is what we'll look at today. So what makes a good narrative? Or before that, maybe, what is a narrative? A narrative is essentially what you were saying in your promotion. And what makes a good one is one that appeals to who you want to reach and in a way that gets them to do what you want them to do. In an ideal world, you might rectify your blog post by trimming it down. You might explain architecture on your Facebook post, and you might put an image on the poster. And all of a sudden, you get the results that you want. Often, though, even by doing that, you won't see the results you're looking for because you haven't altered your narrative. You're not appealing to the people you need to in the way that they need to be encouraged to act. You might want people to engage with the church, but they might not want to engage with you via a blog post on its history. So how do you produce a good narrative if it's not that? The truth is, a good narrative is often the last step in successful promotion. So just think about it like a building. In order to build the building, you need foundations in place first. And I'm not talking about a complicated and daunting marketing strategy. I'm talking about simple steps that help you focus on what you are trying to achieve and how you're trying to achieve it in order to create that good narrative. So before you begin any type of promotion, there are 4 things that I highly recommend you ask yourself. And these are: what do you want to do? Who do you want to reach? Where are you promoting? And what content are you producing? And let's now take a look at these in closer detail. So, number 1, what do you want to do? This is what you're trying to achieve, your aims. Yes, you might want more people to know about your work, but is there a specific action that you're asking them to do? You, for example, could be asking people to donate money. You could want more people to visit or use the facilities, or you might need to generate more support to get your project or organisation up and running. You need to establish these things before you dive into promotion. Otherwise, you could end up with lots of random messaging which could confuse people. And you should do this process for everything that you are wanting to achieve, so that each aim is separate. So, for example, you could have 3 aims. 1, to get more volunteers. 2, to get people to donate money. Or 3, to get people to visit the church and use its facilities. Okay. So number 2, excuse me, who do you want to reach? This is your audience. You might think that the bigger the audience, the better chance of it succeeding, but that is not always the case. You've got what you want to do. Think about how it impacts who your audiences are. And also think about what your audiences want, as well as things such as their location, in order to build a picture of who they are. This will be important when you come to create a narrative for them. You can be quite broad in how you define your audience, and this will actually help you widen your pool of potential audiences without it becoming so wide that you end up targeting no one. Let's take a look at the volunteering example. So, if you want to get more volunteers, your audience are likely going to be people who are able to get to you within a reasonable time, so they might live relatively local. They're going to be people who are passionate about giving up their time to help others. They may be eager to learn a new skill, or they might just want to meet new people. They might not be interested specifically in your building or its history, but more about the feeling of volunteering. So here I focused on the motivations behind volunteering in general. This has helped to keep the audience wide enough to be useful, but not so wide that I can't appeal to anybody. By focusing more on the feeling behind the volunteering rather than why they want to volunteer at my church specifically, it's going to help me later on when I need to produce a narrative for this audience. This way, I can attract new audiences that I might not have thought of before, because I'm focusing more on the feeling of achieving something or starting something new instead of being very, very specific. And don't worry if you're sat there thinking, I have absolutely no idea how to work out what my audience wants. We'll be covering this alongside some other useful resources such as the Make Your Mark campaign in Scotland that can help you with this just a bit later on in the presentation. So number 3, where are you going to promote? So based off your aim and your audience, where is the best place to reach them? There's no point in putting lots of time and energy into building a website if your audience prefers traditional print media such as leaflets or posters. You're just never going to reach them online. You need to work out where your audience is likely to be. Whilst this can seem daunting, you can always start small and work your way out to build a bigger picture. So regarding the reaching the volunteers, is there an active community group on Facebook or other social media channel? Is there a community newsletter or a work experience offer at a local college that you could promote to? Could you produce a poster for the supermarket, or are there any local groups who you could do a presentation or taster session on volunteering with? You might find that you try these things and you're still not reaching who you wanted to reach. So you will need to try other methods. And sometimes it is literally a case of trial and error, which I know can be very frustrating. But the point I want you to take from this is you don't have to do lots or start really big. You can actually start very, very local with what you know and what you're comfortable with. And number 4, what content will you produce? This is the question that delves deeper into the narrative. Now that you've got your aims, your audience, and your locations, you can begin to look at what narrative is really going to appeal to your audience. This is how to make your narrative into a good one. That one that appeals to the right people at the right time and makes them do what you want them to do. The way to look at it is, what are you going to say and how are you going to say it? So, potential volunteers. One of the things that was on that list of who that audience might be is that they might want to meet new people. So one option here is to center your narrative around that, meeting new people, showing how engaging with volunteering with your organization can achieve that. So you've identified that there's an active group, an active Facebook group for your surrounding area that lots of people engage with. So you decide to put a post in that group. You should use a good quality image that reflects the audience you're aiming at. This is so that they can see themselves as part of your organization. The image should also support your narrative. If it's meeting new people, show a group of current volunteers getting along or working together. And what should you write to go with your post? We'll look at this in a bit more detail in the next section, but your text should highlight how your organization can benefit them. This is the start of building your narrative. It all links in with what your audience wants and how your organization appeals to that. So the biggest thing to remember here is to start with your audience when building your narrative, which can be tricky as there's probably lots of things that you think are relevant, but you need to put themselves in the audience's shoes and ask, will they be interested in this? And this is how you'll eventually be able to grow and develop that narrative. So you've asked yourself the 4 questions. You thought about what narrative you could portray, but how do you actually turn this into something useful within the capacity that you have? So we'll cover here the basics and then how to develop your narrative if you've got a bit more resource. So when you are just starting out, it's important to look at the story and the text or copy, as some of you might know it as, that you are producing. So getting your text right is important because it's the beginning of a good narrative. So things to consider. You need to meet your audience where they are at. Remember when you were thinking about your audience. So if they are interested in meeting new people, focus on that. Don't try and introduce lots of concepts or lots of facts or knowledge. That's not necessarily of interest to them. If you're trying to reach a new audience who don't know much about your church or organization, don't bombard them with loads of information at the beginning. Just start small. Start with the small basic things of what they need to know. Be clear and concise. Don't leave your messaging or your promotion ambiguous. If you want someone to volunteer with you, You have to tell them that. Don't assume that they will jump to the conclusion that you want them to based on what promotion they're reading. Finally, show, don't tell. Don't just say this is an important building, even though it might be really important to you and the community. Show why it's an important building to them. Let's just look at show, don't tell in a bit more detail. So don't say this building is really important to the local community. Say, since it was first built, our church has always provided the local community with a place to gather and share news. We intend to keep it this way. Can you just see the difference between these two statements? In the second one, you are already creating a narrative about your church and its position in the community, and you've not even said the word important. Now let's look at some copy regarding the volunteering example. So if you were posting in the Facebook group with your post and your image, don't say, we're looking for volunteers for our church. You'll get to meet lots of new people if you join us. It's fine, but it doesn't create anything. It says what you're looking for, but it doesn't say why. It gives no detail on what you want from the audience or any acknowledgement for their position and where they're at. And it says that they get to meet new people, but it doesn't give an idea of how. And it also gives no detail on how to act on joining your organisation. Instead, try this. So meeting new people can sometimes seem daunting, and often it's difficult to know where to start. Have you thought about volunteering? At our church, we have a small but mighty group of volunteers who are passionate about making sure the church can be used by the community. They get involved in caring for the grounds, organising events and helping with maintenance. We'd love to welcome you to the team. Get in touch with us on Facebook and start your volunteering journey. The first sentence leads with what your audience wants or needs. It connects with them. It introduces the concept of what your volunteering program already does and gives examples of the type of work that they could do. And it gives details on how to act. So let's just look at how you would introduce any images or anything else accompanying this text. So the basics with images and videos. So I talk a lot about text and narrative via text in this presentation. I don't touch too much on images and videos because there's lots and lots of resources out there which I can put you in the right direction to, but we can get in the realms of being very, very complicated. So I'll just give you a little bit of a brief overview with the basics of images and videos. So both of them, they should enhance the narrative and match what your text is saying. So if you're talking about volunteers, be it on a poster, on your website, on any social media post in any newspaper, have images of volunteers and not images of just your church or something important in your church. They should be high quality, so not blurry, but when we say high quality, they can be taken on a phone, on a smartphone. They don't have to be taken by a huge quality, expensive camera. Smartphones are great. Like all of a sudden, I'm a photographer with my Google phone. It's great. And they should appeal to your audience. If you were trying to, say, attract families, use a picture of a family. So videos as well, videos are very, very popular on things like social media. If you're wanting to branch out into the realm of video, just make sure you ask yourself if it aids your narrative and look into a bit of guidance around creating them. It's quite simple to create a short video for something like social media once you know how, but you will set yourself up for frustration if you dive in without properly thinking, right, how are we going to do this? As I said, I won't go into the ins and outs of creating a video, but the same principle applies as it does to your text. You shouldn't be creating a video if you've not got reasonable evidence that it's the best thing to do to engage your audience. So the examples I've just given, there's only so many times, they're fine, but they're great and they're brilliant if you're just starting out. But there's only so many times you can use the above example and get results that help you to grow. As I said, there's nothing wrong with any is the examples they're given. But if you do want to grow that engagement, you're going to need to grow your narrative with it. So yeah, as I said, the above example is perfect for just starting out. But if you're at the stage where you're ready to grow or develop, it's time to think about developing your narrative a bit like you would a story. So these are steps that you can take to ensure that your narrative grows and is consistent. So these are establishing your themes, expanding your content, so trying out different content, and creating a schedule or a content calendar. So you can create multiple themes from one aim to help you project your narrative. So take your aim. We'll stick with volunteering in this case. So you know what types of things your target audience are interested in and what's likely to resonate with them. So we use the example of meeting new people. You can then link that to what the volunteering story at your organisation is like in relation to meeting new people. So, for example, you meet new people at the sign-up process, the induction, you meeting the team. And during meeting the team, you can expand on that and talk about all the ways you can get involved, focusing in on that sense of achievement and that giving back to the community. And then you can go even further and get them to encourage more people to volunteer. Essentially, you can create content around all of these themes from an existing thing that you already do. You're not searching or clutching at straws for something. You've got it there. You just need to work out how to harness that story in a way people are going to want to listen. So we're going to take a little look at that now. So we're going back to the idea of show, don't tell. So actually the image here is the very first social media post that I did for the Heritage Network. So we just expanded our team thanks to funding, and it was time to announce the official start of that new team. So the whole campaign featured individual team members, their background and what they were looking forward to. We actually hadn't tried out many graphic elements before this, but the simple design seemed to really work, and it was really popular series, and we'll probably run it again in 2026. So how could you try out that different content? So the first thing is get your team involved, even if there are only 2 or 3 of you, or if you are the team. Those real stories are really impactful. So yes, whilst we had nice pictures to go along with our Meet the Team posts, we also had really individual stories as well. Can your current volunteers write or talk about the friendships they've made? And could you tie that into a Meeting the Team article or social media post or presentation, just linking back to the themes that I've just talked about? Can your current volunteers write or talk about the knowledge that they've gained? Or can your volunteers just write or talk about any of the volunteering story? So for example, you could write an article for the local paper or website or Facebook about meeting the volunteers. You could interview them and it could look a bit like this. So, this is a very abbreviated version. I didn't think putting an entire interview would be very, very riveting reading, just a wall of text. But meet Joe and Jessica. They are volunteers at the local church who discovered that they both shared the same love of gardening. So the question, what made you get involved with the organisation? So Joe, I just moved to the area and was looking to meet new people. Jay, I'd lived in the area for all my life, but wanted to try something new. So can you see the difference between this example here about advertising for more volunteers and that very, very first one, which said, we're looking for more volunteers, join us and you'll get to meet new people. This one that's on your screens now creates a much stronger narrative and is more likely to engage your audience. You can already, even from this short excerpt, it paints a narrative of what your organization is like compared to previous examples. It's not focusing on the building, but it's showing the impact that it has, that building has. And we can see the importance of it without having to be told. So all good stories pace themselves and content is no different. Really, creating a schedule is going to be the anchor for your narrative. You need to have a bit of a plan for what you're promoting and when. especially if you have a few different aims that you are trying to achieve with your promotion and are utilizing several different promotion methods. They also help you work out what you need to do and when, and you can keep track of everything that is happening and begin to understand what's doing well. So here are some examples of what a content calendar could look like for you. So the biggest thing that I want you to take away from this is that there's not much on that. You can create a narrative with only a few items a month if that is all you have time for. It's much better to produce quality content than lots of poorly rushed together content. So here it's just one thing on a social media channel and an advert in the newspaper, in the local newspaper. This is an easy way to keep track of what's happening when, and you can easily move things around if you think there's too much focus in one area. You can also put it to show the different types. So if you've got multiple people looking at it, you can color code it. And this was made with a free template from the website Canva, but you could just as easily make a Word document with tables, like create a table or just write a list, or you could even handwrite one and put it up in a communal area. It's really, really individualistic. There is literally no set way of writing a content plan. It's very individual to the organization, and that's how you can make it work for you. So yeah, if you've got more time, you create more social media content that adds to the narrative. So here we've got 2 social media posts, one that's meet the team, and then one a few weeks later, it's volunteers saying that like what their favorite thing is. And finally, if you've got more resource, then this is how you could add in another layer, such as an in-person event. So you can arrange your content. You can arrange your content so that it feeds your narrative. So, for example, you could tell people to check out your Facebook page when you advertise in the paper or before you talk to the community group. And that way they'll come up across your volunteers post. So, for example, you could say be like, I've got a presentation coming up on the 27th. I will just mention in passing or in my email to check out our Facebook post in the hope that they will then look at the Facebook post on the 22nd or the 23rd and then see what you're about, basically. So that's the way you can start to link it all together. So wouldn't it be wonderful if you did all of these things and they worked? Unfortunately, that is not always the case. And I'm sure some of you have run into this. Some of you have probably listened to this PowerPoint and said, but we've done that. So here are some of the common challenges and my answers to them. So I've done everything in this presentation, but I'm still not seeing improvements or results or anybody engaging. And my answer to that is just think, how long have you been doing it for? So it can take time to build engagement and you need to give your narrative time to work. You aren't going to generate massive engagement overnight. So, going viral isn't a strategy. It might be nice, but it isn't a strategy. If you've been doing the process for about 6 months without seeing any sort of improvement, then it might be time to look at whether your narrative is the right one or if your audience are the right people. So I've looked at my audience and my narrative, but I'm still not getting anywhere. I then ask, is it your promotion that's is it your promotion that's the problem, or is it your aim? If you're wanting to get volunteers and you've had people say, oh, we'd love to do that, but we just don't have the time, then no matter how good your promotion is, there is no need or want for what you're offering. This would be different to if you'd had no interest at all, which I suggest looking at the 4 questions again and working out if you're still missing that narrative. But if it is your aim, how can you approach it differently? Can you think of an alternative solution? So, for example, if no one has time to volunteer, what could they do to support their organisation in a way that's going to help you and appeal to them? Can you think outside of the box on this one? And the third one is, how do I find out the answers to the 4 questions in the first place? So you should have a good idea of what you're wanting to do and who you want to reach, even if it might not turn out to be the right people at the beginning. You should have at least that. If you don't, it's not a promotion problem. In fact, I would argue that you're not ready for the promo stage. You really need to lock down. It's really important to lock down what you want to do and what you want, yeah, what you want to do and who you want to reach. Because without those in place, that's where you'll end up back to the problem of putting stuff out and not getting any response at all. But I'll admit it can be really hard to find out what your audience wants, especially when you don't know when to start or you don't know anything. Finding out where they engage and therefore what narrative works best for them is really, really hard when you don't even know who you want to reach. I face that a lot in my previous roles, but I would say the simple way to begin is to start with what you do know. So if you're trying to attract volunteers in your local area, you might already know a lot about that local area and the people who live and the people who work there. So you can start there and then you can work out from that what you don't know and how you might find that out. If you have the resource, there is the option of doing a bit of research into your target audiences. So you could look at similar groups across the country at what they are doing to promote themselves and see what type of people are engaging with their work. You can talk to people in your local community and find out where they get their information from. Or you can talk to other businesses and get a feel for the sort of environment at the moment, how they are finding if people are engaging with what they're doing. So in Scotland, there is the Make Your Mark campaign, which I'm going to ask somebody to link to the chat if that is possible, please. They have excellent resources on sort of like recruiting and engaging people, and a fantastic place to start if you are questioning how to develop your audience. And finally, it can be trial and error. If it all adds up on paper, it just might not add up in reality. And that sometimes is the nature, and it can be down to lots of things beyond your control. So if you're finding that a bit of content isn't working, just try something else. It's a journey, and even some of the most successful organizations have content that doesn't do well. And I know that. So I've been there. So just a few lessons learned to recap on this today. And I really hope that you can take something away from this presentation that you can implement. If it's not all of it, if you're not ready for that, I'll just focus on these three things. So 1, good narrative is built on good foundations. Don't go diving straight into promotion because you think that is the right thing to do, or you think that you're behind because everybody else is doing it. It's good narrative is built on good foundations. Remember the 4 questions. So ask yourself the 4 questions for every aim that you're wanting to achieve. And the third one is create the narrative your audience wants, not the narrative that you personally think is important. Always put the audience first. There's a little bit of a mantra that anybody who's done any bit of marketing related courses or theory or training is they just always say know your audience, and that is so important to just know your audience and who they are and what they're wanting, because without that you can't create a narrative that's going to interest them or attract them. So yeah, thank you very much for listening to me today.